Welcome, Ben. I'm super excited to be here with you today, and I'm excited to have a jam-packed, value-packed hour of advice and diving into different, from your experiences and startup advice and whatnot. I guess just to start out, can you just maybe tell us about, your roots of your entrepreneurial journey, your career, and all the way till what you're up to nowadays?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on. I mean, I could probably, I can go way back to when I started to get into tech, which was really just selling stuff on eBay. And my grandfather gave me like a bunch of camera equipment to sell, and I guess I thought, I realized, I could just sell other people's equipment. So I started to put signs up in my neighborhood and posts on Craigslist, like advertising. And it was hard to sell things back then. This was pre AI and like phones pretty much. So I was doing a bunch of that, and I started to build websites through that. Started to get into blogging. I think I discovered Twitter around then. It was still pretty early on. And then from there, I really just ended up interning at a tech company. I think when I came to Tel Aviv at some point for the summer, I was living in New York back then. Mm-hmm. And then from there, just a whole bunch of adventures.
All right, so take us back to, I guess, the first big adventure that you went on in your tech/entrepreneurial journey after selling things on eBay. What was the first big milestone?
The first big milestone? Well, I was living in New York, and then I came here to join the Army. And before joining the Army, I did pretty much so it wasn't really an internship. I guess I joined a tech company in Tel Aviv called Conduit. They had just bought a company called Wibia. And so I spent 6 months working there because I didn't have security clearance to get into where I wanted to go I was going into intelligence. And so I had this period of time where I couldn't really do anything. And so I don't remember actually how I got there. So this was a while ago, but that was kind of my first long stint. I mean, it was 6 months and I was just, I guess, post high school, and I got a taste of what the tech world was like, and I had a really great time working there.
Amazing. And then what happened next? Then I know a lot of people know you from your time at Notion. So maybe if you want to talk a little bit about that and how you got there, and even if there's anything before that kind of led you to that.
Yeah. I mean, that was years, many years later. But at some point, I went back to San Francisco and was just kind of exploring what I wanted to do. And at some point, I came across this product on this website called Product Hunt, where people launch products and startups. I was a big user and fan of the site, and I came across it and tried it a few times, and I think on the third or fourth time I was like, whoa, this is really incredible software, and I got really into it and started to tweet about it, and had a bunch of people who thought it was cool and were excited to see how I was using Notion. So I started to share more and more of that, and I built a website where people could share how they were using Notion, and a Facebook group, and just kind of doing these things for fun because I was so passionate about Notion, which is how I ended up connecting with the team. And I think I even at some point I was messaging with the founder, and I was telling him hey, I'm gonna be in San Francisco next week. Do you wanna hang out? And I think I was actually in New York at that point, and he was like, oh yeah, you should come by for tea. And so I went by, and I came across this team of 10 people, no shoes in the office.
Wow.
Very Zen vibes.
Very early.
Yeah, it was a very unique culture, and I'd never seen anything like it before. And it actually, I think the coolest part about it was when I stepped into the office, I felt almost what I felt like when I was using the software. It was very calm and organized and zen, and it was just really cool to see that. And so I met someone named Camille Ricketts, who had just joined to lead marketing, and she was like, oh, we should just work on stuff together. So we started to work together, and then I ended up joining not long after, and had a really amazing ride.
Amazing. And early on, when you joined Notion, what was it about the product or about the company that you saw so much potential in?
I just loved the product myself. It was the first time I felt like I could visualize my brain and put all of my thoughts and projects and work into one place, and I thought that was a game changer. I'd tried Evernote and Wunderlist and all these other tools before, and they never really worked as well, and this was one that just really clicked for me, and I figured it would click for other people as well. So that's why I was so bullish on it.
And then how did that then translate into, you were head of community, so I guess first, what exactly does that mean? What did that entail? And and like how were you able to initially like translate, you know, how your own personal feelings towards the product and like get other people excited about it as well?
Yeah, I mean, I worked on a lot of things while I was there, so it was definitely like a made-up title that we like came up with. But really, like a lot of the work I did was around almost around like how do we just leverage our fan base and people that love the product to go out there and teach it and share it and talk about it and distribute it. And so there was a whole bunch of programs that we set up to do that. And you know, amongst them was our ambassador program, influencer marketing, campus program, templates, like a whole bunch of things that over the years we built out, and kind of all of them really were connected to these ideas of like how do we get people to talk about what we're doing in very like authentic ways, which I think was what really made it work well, because it was very different than we weren't necessarily the best company at like paid demand gen and just paying people to advertising on Facebook and SEO, etc. But what I think Notion was and still is really good at is leveraging like word of mouth and organic love for the product to grow, you know, organically, and that's I think how, I mean, not that today the company has, you know, 100 million plus users, and it's really big. I mean, I haven't been there. I left like a year plus ago, so it's been a while, but you know, the company is huge now, and a lot of it is through this word of mouth and just people organically loving the product.
And so were there any specific like strategies or frameworks that you felt that really worked well while you were at Notion, in terms of like what really skyrocketed its growth, that other startups could utilize or apply within their own companies?
I think a lot of the stuff that I worked on was very unique to Notion, meaning like these were things that we realized would work well because of the makeup of our users. For example, like the student marketing worked really well because a lot of students really loved Notion. So it's tough to say if there were like specific things that you could take and just like apply them to, you know, to something else. I do recall though, like some of the things that were game changers for Notion were, one was when we took the product that was essentially like a premium product people had to pay for and made it free. So essentially offering more and more of it for free, like that helped skyrocket the user base, and you know, just more and more people started to use it. So like removing some of the blockers from using the product, the paid blockers at least. On the influencer side, like the influencer marketing, I mean, I think that's something that can apply to a lot of companies. You know, it really just like finding whatever niche of influencer, you know, who would be interested in the product that you're building. And what I tried to do when I was setting that up was really focus on influencers that were using the product. So we would just do like essentially mass outreach to all these creators on TikTok and YouTube, etc. And if they weren't using Notion, I would give them a free comped plan so that they would feel like they were getting something special. And then we would just follow up a few months later telling them like, hey, you know, do you want to partner together on some content? And that, I think that worked really well, and something that could probably apply to other companies. The whole idea around templates as well, I think was really interesting, just because, you know, if you do have a product where people can create some sort of like, you know, UGC, user generated content, and then go out there and convince people to use it and duplicate it and set it up, whatever it might be, like that's really interesting, because then sell things and make money on top of it. So people started to build businesses around that. So it's not as common because you have to be more of like a platform to have that. So not, you know, most companies don't have that, but I do think it's really cool when companies do have that, because they can then create this like layer of building a business on top of whatever it is you're building, which is super sticky and powerful.
Yeah, and I guess building on top of that, I've heard you speak about kind of like how the story and the brand of Notion is really what propelled it and allowed it to grow like far beyond like actually building that community and building that like product stickiness more than something like you know, Google Sheets or Excel, because of that, like the brand and the feel and making it cool for, you know, entrepreneurs and young people to use it and get into it and kind of make it their own. I guess building on top of that, how do you, in terms of like looking at it from a brand and a story, building a story and from that perspective for entrepreneurs, like how important do you think that is for startups in general? And like especially, you know, there's, for example, like such a boom of different AI products, and like there's so much out there. Like how does like one startup differentiate from another and really make that product sticky?
Yeah, I think that's a huge differentiator if you can build like a story and brand that's, very unique and different. I think most companies are not so good at it. Like it's a hard thing to do. And Notion, I think, was particularly good at it because this incredible woman named Camille, who was leading marketing there, she's just probably, I think, one of the best people in the world at this. And and today, yeah, for sure, I think there's probably I've seen like 10 companies doing the same thing in every category in AI, like at least. And I think the ones that are the most interesting are the ones where there's some sort of differentiator on the storytelling side, and could be like it's like founder led, some unique take on like how they're building the brand. I think some companies are doing better than others at this.
Are there any like ones that stick out to you that you've seen recently that have been doing really, really well at that?
I think maybe one might be like Lovable, this no-code AI builder, which I think it's a great product, and I think like, for example, the founder is doing incredible, founder.
Beehive as well.
Yeah. Beehive is probably another one. I think he's also doing like really great founder-led marketing and brand building. I'm trying to think of others. What do you think?
That was like one of the first ones, because I've been like specifically following their story more recently.
Yeah.
Because we've been using it, like I've been using it, and then I started getting into like the story a lot. But yeah, no, I think it's super important. And I think like, I was gonna also say like in terms of building in public, like what are your thoughts on building in public? I mean, I know also you've built up a pretty awesome like personal brand on LinkedIn and X and whatnot. And like, I guess I'm curious, like how did you get into that in general? And then also how have you been able to leverage it, and how do you think other like founders also can leverage that?
I think probably when I left Notion like a year-ish ago, I got more into that, mostly because I started a newsletter, or like a newsletter community. I don't really know what to call it, and I figured LinkedIn, Twitter, etc. like those would probably be really good places for me to grow it. So I spent a lot of time trying to figure out like what are the things that work well, and where to invest on those platforms. What I learned was, so the way I went about it was I basically just made like a Kanban board in my Notion workspace, and I was like, I'm gonna throw all the ideas I have in here and like force myself to publish a few things a week. And I wasn't using social media that much. Like I honestly, I don't like social media. I try to stay away from it, but I wanted to use it just to like grow this newsletter, so for a very specific purpose. And so I threw all these ideas into this Kanban board and started to force myself to publish things. And really what I did was like when something stuck and when something worked, I would just like double down on it. So if one thing caught on, I would do it another 10 times. And that was really like the recipe I followed over the past year. I started this a year ago, and I found like a couple things that worked really well on X and a couple things that worked really well on LinkedIn, and then also Substack as well, which is where I spent a lot of time.
Is that what like inspired like when you post out those lists of different, like you'll post like 50 top growing startups or early stage that are hiring? Is that like what inspired that?
Yeah, that was purely to just grow this newsletter. Yeah, because then I'm able to drive traffic to get people to sign up for my newsletter.
What was the original thought process behind specifically posting like the job opportunities? Did you want to do that first, or did that just happen?
Well, it was, meaning the newsletter that I started, which was called Next Play, is for people who are like exploring what they want to do next. Mm-hmm. And so I had been hosting like dinners around that theme for a few years, just like on the side for fun. And so when I decided like, okay, I'm gonna double down on this, one of the things I wanted to do was like start this newsletter where I would share like what I thought would be the most interesting, like kind of under the radar opportunities in tech. And so, like super early teams that were starting and teams that were growing really fast, and things that like, if I were looking to join a company right now, like this is the kind of content I would want to read. Because I found it, like I always found it really hard to find that stuff. Like the only way I really learned about those things was just by asking VCs or people that were like super plugged in. But it's like, you're not really gonna find this stuff on LinkedIn, or people don't really share that. So I was like, I'll just like share this stuff myself. And so I started to do that, and I guess people were liked it, and so that's why I just kept on doing more and more of it. And the people that would engage with that oftentimes would also sign up for my newsletter, so it just kind of became this flywheel for and then I share more content like that in this newsletter, and so that's how I've grown that over the past year.
Got it. So really, do you feel like what you've been posting mostly like on LinkedIn and X, then that is also then to support Next Play, and then the newsletter, and then it's that cycle.
Exactly. Yeah. Otherwise, I wouldn't be doing it. Like I'm not doing it for the sake of doing it. I'm just doing it because I want to be growing Next Play.
Sure. I'm curious, like, what have you seen come up? I mean, I'm sure you have some crazy stories of different like opportunities or introductions that have led to like crazy things for people just like from seeing those posts. Do you have any?
Yeah, I probably get an email like every week from someone who's either joined a company through one of these emails or posts. Someone who's actually started a company with someone, because I also feature people who are looking to start companies in the newsletter, and so I get emails from people being like, hey, I've been working for 6 months with this person who you featured in the newsletter, like we're going out to raise money, and I'm always like, damn, that's crazy. I mean, you met in a newsletter, it doesn't make any sense. Or some people also meet we also have events in a bunch of cities, like Next Play events, and so people will meet there as well, and so I'll hear like, oh, these people met in Austin at an event and they're starting a company now together, like that's wild. But I do really believe in like the serendipity of just, like when you putting people together, like you really never know what will happen. So
it could be internet.
It could be in person, it could be in the internet, it could be in a newsletter, it could be on social, like you really never know. So
yeah, awesome. And I guess one of the many hats that you also wear is angel investing. I know you also post a lot about that, and I frequently see your posts where you'll say like, I'm gonna invest in like X amount of companies in this time, like hit me up, like how you're available. I think it's really cool, like how accessible that you also like make yourself. I'm curious, like what comes out of that? Like I'm sure you get bombarded with messages, and I mean some of those posts get thousands of impressions and crazy reach. So I mean, have you had any successful investments from those posts?
I mean, to be honest, like 99% of them are not relevant. So it's usually like,
how do you sift through them?
I just run through them on email. Like it's not that time consuming. I really just do it because like the whole thing with investing is like just being top of mind you want to be top of mind for when like someone's great at starting something. And so every once in a while I try to just like leverage my social accounts to like make sure that I'm hopefully like a bit top of mind. There's other ways too. There's also just like being in touch with your portfolio founders and them referring companies to you, or other investors you're in touch with. Like there's all these different channels. So the way I see it is just like that's just one channel to kind of stay top of mind for hopefully meeting someone great. But it's very much like a game of outliers. I'm not. It's 99% of people are reaching out or I'm talking to. I'm not investing in. It's really just like trying to find the best of the best and then invest in them, and hopefully they're an outlier.
Yeah. So I guess when it does come to, when in this case that you do invest, what are you looking for?
I'm trying to lean in as early as possible, like on pre-seed side. So it's usually like a mix of either the team and traction or both. So like maybe I've known the team for a long time or the founders and think they're really exceptional, or there's insane traction and they're growing really fast and making really good progress, and or it's both of them. Without either of those, I think it's really hard.
Yeah, well, I guess that early, like especially pre-seed, there's very subtle indicators that you have to like really look out for at that early stage, because it's like it really comes. A lot of times they're selling an idea, or they're just at the very early stages of building their product. So I guess like how do you identify like are there nuances to like what you see when companies like pitch to you that like you try to look out for? Or
I honestly think like today it's like easier than ever to go as like pretty far without raising money. Like I think you can build a lot, you can make money like without having to raise too much money early on. So I'm a huge fan of when folks like spend a bit of time like actually like not just getting a deck ready, but like actually building something and getting it out there and getting people signed up and getting traction. I think that's great. It's not always possible, but I've definitely seen like especially now like more and more people trying to do that. And then a lot of it's also just like personal relationships. It's just a lot easier to invest in someone you've known for a long time or have like worked with in the past. Otherwise you're really just sometimes I'm just referencing other people who maybe have known them and just trying to get a sense of like who this person is. Are they really fantastic, or are they kind of mediocre? And sometimes it's just relying on other people for that kind of information.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess when companies like pitch to you on both sides, what are some things that like you find that, or instances where what like companies do really well that you've seen when pitching, or like very common mistakes?
The truth is, like, the whole VC game, like, the best way to play it is to never actually be raising money. Like, that's, people won't say.
Because then you're a good product and you don't need
right.
money.
So people don't really say it that much, but it's like, you always want to be in a position where you don't really have to raise money, right? And so if you can, like, start to generate revenue or be super scrappy or whatever it might be without, like, having to, raise money, like, fantastic, right? Like, you just go as far as possible without it. And, like, I think you always want to be in a position where, like, investors want to be, chasing after you, right? Because, like, you have great traction, or because, the product looks incredible and you're moving fast, or because you're building a great story on social and, like, people are following, or, whatever it might be. Like, I think you always want to try to position yourself that way versus, like, I'm stuck, I can't move unless I have capital. Like, that's I think, like, the worst position to be in. So I always, like, advocate for for trying to be in one of the first bucket versus, like, the second bucket.
Yeah, but what do you say for companies where they're kind of like, because I see a lot of founders where they're in the situation of, like, the chicken or the egg, or which comes first, the chicken or the egg, because, like, they need the capital to be able to get that early traction or to develop their product in some way, but, like, investors obviously want to see that traction, or they're kind of they're stuck. What do you like? Do you have any advice for those types of founders? Because I see it all the time, and obviously try to help as much as possible. But I'm curious, what do you usually say or advice that you give?
I mean, it's hard. Like, I think it depends on the situation. Like, some, if hardware, for example, it's gonna be a lot harder, right? Because you really do need capital. But I think really today more so, like, software. Like, I really do think you can build a lot without really needing much money. Like, you can there's just all these amazing products and tools out there, and you can find scrappy ways to get credits and grants and whatever it might be, and join some program to get grants for this and whatever. And like, I just think the scrappy folks will, like, win at the end of the day if you're versus, like, just being stuck. It's hard. I mean, that's why being a founder is so hard. Like, it's not meant to be easy.
100%.
I think people are always going to suffer on on that side. It's nothing like it's a really hard game to play.
Yeah. I'm curious, if you were, like, just starting out as, like, a new entrepreneur, where would you start? Like, where would you advise someone to look towards first to really, like, get started or come up with new ideas or, areas to leverage right now?
Yeah, I think I would probably think, like, I think up until now people have thought more about, like, building first and then thinking about distribution, but I actually have been thinking about, like, how I feel like you need to do the inverse now, like, think more about distribution and then about building, because I feel like it's getting easier and easier to build, like, all these crazy AI tools, Cursor, Lovable, etc. I mean, you can just build stuff so fast, but the distribution is, like, harder, I think, because there's so much noise. There's a million people building the same things. SEO is dying. No one knows how marketing works, and so, like, distribution is really hard and can be expensive. So I would just think about, like, how do you, like, whatever it is you are planning to build, like, can you nail some sort of, like, distribution edge before? And I think if you do have that, like, you can be in a really strong position. So it's almost like reversing the framework for how people have been building companies today.
Is there anywhere specific where you get inspiration from?
I spend a lot of time on Twitter. I get sometimes inspired, sometimes depressed from it. So it all depends on how you use it and who you follow.
Yeah.
But I think Twitter is, like, or X is still, like, the best place to just get ideas and see what people are building out there. You have to curate the right timeline to do that, but that's my number one.
Is there anyone that you follow specifically, or, like, any mentors that have, like, played a significant role in, like, your entrepreneurial journey or getting into tech?
Yeah, I have my own, like, personal mentors who are, like, work and personal life side who I go to, and there's just, I don't even think they use social media really, but they're people I'm very close to who I look up to and really respect and admire. I did one thing I thought of recently, because someone reminded me of it, was I had for a few years I had and I stopped this. I think I stopped this after I got married because it kind of broke the system. But I had like a life board. So I had, I think, like maybe 5 people on it. It was a WhatsApp group with these 5 people, and every quarter I would send them, like, a report on my life, like every section, like love, work, religion, friends, family, and then I would put, like, ratings at the bottom, how I was doing in all of them, and just, like, ask for feedback from my board.
So, like, you're the product of the closest 5 people around you.
Yeah. So it was pretty cool while I did it. I think once you're married, it's like a little more complicated. I don't know if you could do that. But that was another way I kind of looked for mentorship essentially. So I do recommend people do that. I think it's a really cool idea if you're like at a point in life where it's okay to do that still.
Yeah. Are there any like specific books that you've read or podcasts that you listen to that you really like?
Yeah, I mean on books I read a lot of like biographies and history and then podcasts I listen. There's a few I listen to pretty religiously. I think like All In podcast is one, which is like tech guys in the US, and I listen to sometimes like interviews with Lex Friedman, also like some history podcasts like Hardcore History, and that's not too many more, but I listen to like those pretty religiously, and they're long. And Acquired, I think Acquired's a really good one. That one's more of like a business one. They just do these like super long deep dives on companies. Like right now I'm listening to one that's like a 5-hour deep dive on Rolex, which is just like, it's really interesting. So
what are your thoughts on like the balance between like preparation and building?
I personally care more about building. than preparation. Like to be honest, like, I mean, this maybe is more of a misconception, but I think it depends on who. Like, I actually don't normally look at decks. Like, like, if people have like a few paragraphs or like a quick memo, like that's usually like where I spend more of my time. I find that to be more, like, to me, it's a little more compelling to see how they can like just write about the company or what they're building in like a few paragraphs versus like a very long thought through deck. I think there's obviously a lot of VCs and folks who do want to see decks, and like there's always going to be a need for that. But depending on like who your audience is, like some people just it's not really as relevant. So I'm probably on that side.
But for example, like a lot of times we'll have companies come to us and they just don't understand necessarily like what they need, like they think they have, and a lot of times they do have great products, but like from an investor's perspective, like they don't have all of the right information of, like there's a lot of gaps in like their strategy that haven't been like fully fleshed out, that like I know an investor is going to ask them like questions about. Like, what are your thoughts in terms of, I mean, do you see a lot of that? I'm sure, because a lot of founders will come to you and like ask for advice and stuff, and like, and are there any specific like frameworks that you try to give them to like, okay, this is how you should be thinking about it? Like, I'm sure a lot of people come to you and they're like, they have this idea and they're like, want to get your thoughts on it. What are kind of usually your first, I guess, pieces of advice when like a founder would come to you?
I mean, because I'm meeting folks like super early, so I'm actually like, I think it depends on maybe at what stage you're meeting them. Like if you're meeting someone and then they're raising a Series A, like I think you probably want to make sure that you have all those bases covered. Mm-hmm. But like where I like spending my time because of what I'm building with NextPlay in this community is like, I like meeting people when they're like super lost and confused and like trying to, going through idea maze or trying to figure out what they want to work on or trying to meet people like to work with. And at that point, like people have nothing and have literally no idea what they're trying to do. So I'm like, where I'm trying to spend time at least is like to help people like be a sounding board around that point, which I don't think there's like a lot of resources and around that, because like I've been at that point too, where like you're in between things, or you're just like exploring and like where am I going, what do I want to do, who do I want to work with, like those are like more like existential questions. Yeah. So and I don't really have a framework for that. I think it's just like being a sounding board and being available, like being around. But I don't think most VCs like necessarily, or a lot of VCs are like at that state or like exploring or spending time with people like at that stage, because it's like it's very far from like kind of what you're talking about, which is like, okay, we're ready to go, like we need to get all of our bases covered. So just two very different stages.
Sure. What was the point that you were saying? You said you had a thought, and I like.
Oh.
Was it with the misconception stuff or no?
Oh shoot, yeah.
I wanted to ask you about NextPlay.
Yeah.
Like, tell me about it. I mean, I know about it, but like, what inspired it? I mean, you spoke a little bit about, how, when you started posting on X and LinkedIn, but what is it today? Like, what are you hoping it will turn into?
Yeah, so today it's Next Play. It's like essentially a community for people exploring what they want to do next. And so it's think of it as like a lot of people who are still working at companies and thinking about what they want to do, or people who sold companies and are now like exploring, or whatever it might be. And so I have people, there's a few elements to it. Like we have people hosting Next Play events in about 30 cities. So in like London, Boston, Austin, really all over. And those events are very curated, bringing people together who are in that mode of like, what do I want to do next? And people have met at these events, like I mentioned, and they've started companies, they've helped someone make a hire through it, or what's important or what's helpful about it is that these events are like off the record, and they're super curated, and also people come and they don't have to worry about like, oh, my boss will find out I was there or whatever it might be, because a lot of these people are like really secretly looking. So we have that, and then I also have a newsletter which has about 55,000 subscribers now, and so I send that out every week, and I try to curate like the best opportunities, things that I would want to read about if I was looking for what's next or exploring.
How do you find that?
Early on, it was just like, it was a lot of just reaching out to people, scouring the web.
I'm sure now people send stuff to you.
Yeah, now it's a lot of people sending stuff to me, which makes it easier, because once you have an audience, like people want to get in front of it. Mm-hmm. So we just write a little bit about these companies and like what makes them exciting and why this team is so great. And ideally, it's things that people wouldn't necessarily have come across on Twitter or LinkedIn or whatever it might be, or it's more of these like under the radar things, and that's what I think people appreciate about it. Mm-hmm. And then, that's really it. I mean, I tried a podcast at some point and it failed.
Why?
I just it was so much harder than I thought.
Yeah.
It's not easy. I think I did like 15 episodes and it wasn't really growing that much. It was getting like a couple hundred listens, and the stuff everything was working so much better on LinkedIn and Twitter and Substack. So I was just like, why don't I just focus on things that are working and not spend the same amount of time on a podcast that's like not growing very fast. So, but I've heard that it's just like very, it takes a long time to grow a podcast. It's very hard. So, but yeah, that's really it with Next Play. I mean, the goal is just like help more people, find whatever it is they want to do. So hopefully more people who join companies, who start companies through it, and just kind of keep scaling that.
Yeah. I'm curious your thoughts on like new trends and like any cool new products that you see like on Product Hunt, or like where do you think the wave of AI is going?
I'm personally really into like the builder tools right now, because that's what like Notion was always for me. It was this tool to like build knowledge and knowledge management and project management, things like that. And now I think what's so cool is all these tools that enable people to become builders. So I mentioned one of them before, Lovable, I think is really cool, and there's V0 and Bolt and Cursor and all these I'm just trying to spend a bunch of time in them building stuff, and I think those are super, super exciting, just enabling anyone to become a builder who doesn't really have the knowledge or power to do that today.
Yeah.
That seems to be I think one of the coolest things coming out of all of this.
Well, that goes right into your recent post about being bullish on solopreneurship. I guess can you expand on that?
It just seems like there's so many incredible teams out there right now that are super small and just growing incredibly fast, revenue-wise and traction and their user base, and they don't have to hire as many people as before. Even even one-person teams who are just building really meaningful businesses, getting to 1 million, 2 million, 3 million in ARR as one person, maybe two people. It's pretty wild. And I think more so than ever, it's really feasible to do that. And I'm just very bullish on people building stuff with very limited resources. And not having to hire a lot of people. So I think it's interesting because like guess it creates a question around like what, how will that tie into venture, and will people just want to raise like maybe smaller rounds and not like, like do companies need to raise massive amounts of funding? I think it depends on what they're building, right? Like for like enterprise companies, it might be harder because you need all these constraints and things you need to sell to other enterprise companies, or hardware, right? It's also harder. So there's always gonna be exceptions, and but I'm personally like excited about those tiny small teams doing building big stuff.
Sure. I'm curious. I actually have two questions that are totally unrelated. One, I was going to ask, what was the coolest template that you ever saw, like the coolest use case in Notion that you ever saw? That was like the most creative, or like, whoa.
I don't know if there was like one, but I was always coming across like crazy stuff. Like there was people building Dungeons and Dragons like game trackers, and beekeepers using it to manage their beehives, and pastors using it to manage their Bible reading, and people selling like intimacy trackers, and like literally the most insane things. Like I always came across. I mean, there was constantly like more and more stuff. So that's what I really like about these products that like enable people to become builders. It's like.
Another question. Is there like one specific motto that has like stuck with you like throughout your like whole career that you've really tried to stick by? One
specific motto?
Or like something that has like really inspired you to like do what you're doing? Or a person?
I think one thing maybe is just like shipping things. Like I've always just like tried to put stuff out there without worrying too much or waiting too long, like just getting stuff out there as fast as possible. I've worked on a lot of like side projects, and some have done well, some have failed, some have gone nowhere, like all these different things that have led to different like really cool opportunities in different ways. And the thing I noticed always was like the only time things actually worked was when I would just like put stuff out there and ship it. And that could apply to like a side project, could apply to social media, could apply to a startup, but like anything. It's just, but the people, like the times where I like didn't feel like I was progressing was when I was like, I was hesitant, I was questioning myself, I wasn't shipping things, I was just like, but when you're like putting stuff out there, like I think that's what makes like
constant validation, and it's like a yay or nay quick. It's like like the, hire slow, fire fast type of thing, or hire fast, fire fast in that case.
Yeah.
If you like create a product really quick and then get validation quick, like yay or nay.
And it applies to like so many things, but I think it's just like just shipping fast, like whatever it is you're up to. Like I think that's really important, and it's something I've always tried to do, and still trying to do.
Versus like being like essentially making everything like being perfectionist and everything needs to be exactly how like
or just like getting stuck in loops. Like that's I find that to be like super frustrating.
Sure. So I'm curious, how do you manage your day to day with Next Play, with your like all your posting, and like in general, like how do you manage it, and what does your day to day look like? I guess I try to keep things pretty organized. I use Notion, shocking. I try to keep my calendar as free as possible. Like I don't try to I try to have as few meetings as possible. Just have time to like be heads down. I find that meetings like make me like they just make me like super unproductive, and so I like having days where I'm just free. And I use a bunch of AI tools, not shocking, to like just make things, to like just move faster on things. And then I also have a VA in the Philippines. They're the best.
Yeah, so like that helps a lot. And you combine all those things together, and I end up having a lot of time, right? Like if you don't spend your day in meetings, and you're like using all these tools and like outsourcing everything, like you actually can get a lot done.
What are your favorite AI tools out there nowadays?
Favorite AI tools, I use Claude a lot, like Anthropic's version of ChatGPT. So I use that for a lot of the lists I'm putting together and social content. Like Claude helps me with that a bunch. I've been using Lovable a bunch to build stuff. Like I just built a little side project in it for fun, and it was great. I use Perplexity for like search and research, and I think those are like the most basic ones. But I'm always like experimenting with other ones. Like I think I've definitely like used a bunch of others and like churned and then I'm always trying new ones. It's that like I think right now we're in that phase of just trying as many as possible and like seeing what sticks. Those are the ones that have like stuck for me the most so far. But I'm definitely like experimenting. And I've invested in a bunch of others as well that are like super early and in collaboration and productivity AI tools that I have no idea where they'll go, but I'm very curious and interested to see if those will become sticky.
For sure.
Yeah.
Do you have like one like final like piece of advice that you just want to share with people?
Probably. I think the best advice I ever got from someone was, it's actually a really funny story, was it's kind of embarrassing, but like a while ago, I think when I was like, I was like a teenager, I was collecting swag, like just startup t-shirts, like I was bored, I don't know what to say. and I would literally email companies being like, hey, like you have any shirts, like would love to have one. And so I had this whole collection, and then I emailed WhatsApp. I just sent a form on WhatsApp.com asking them for swag, and they were like, "Oh, sure." And I gave them my address, and they were like, "Oh, by the way, our founder's in Tel Aviv. Like, if you maybe want to grab coffee, Jan Koum." And I was like, "Yeah, sure." I think I was in the army or something. I was like 19, and so I went up to have coffee with him. He has like family here. And so I was asking him for advice on what to do and whatever, and he was just like asking me how I use WhatsApp, and I remember we were walking around and he was like looking at how people use WhatsApp on their phones, and like that's all he cared about. He was using like a crappy Nokia because he wanted to see what it was like, like super product focused. And then I emailed him afterwards. I was like, hey, you have any I asked him again maybe a few months later, you have any advice? He's like, just stop asking people for advice and just build stuff and I have a screenshot of it somewhere, but it was just like, don't listen to anyone else's advice, just build stuff. Like just make stuff. Like that was his advice. So that I like that a lot. Like I think that's great advice.
Yeah, it's like the build it and they'll come.
Yeah. And don't listen to like other people's opinions too much. Like they don't really matter.
I mean, it's true. Everyone's like advice is usually a projection of like their own experience, and their experience is not your experience.
Yeah. So all to say, hopefully people don't listen to anything I said and just build cool stuff.
Well, I think that is still great advice.
Yeah, very meta.
Yeah. How does AI affect the world of investing outside of just like typical AI companies?
I mean, I think like expectations are changing a lot. Like I think a lot of investors are looking to see like people move faster revenue growth. Like there was this report that Stripe just came out with that like AI companies they're basically like reaching record revenue, I think like 13 months shorter than like previous companies were previously. And VCs, like if they're going to be looking for the best outcomes, right? And so if speed is the name of the game and moving faster, like I think folks are going to be looking for that more and more. I think it just like raises the bar for everyone in terms of like moving faster, shipping faster, making money faster, building faster, like and staying leaner, not hiring as many people. Like I think founders like are going to have no choice but like to adapt to that. I think everyone's gonna have to build faster and move faster because otherwise like it'll just be unappealing to be investing in other companies. But that's the thing. I think it is like I think a lot of these like all this is being democratized because like you can like anyone now can move faster thanks to like all these products and tools out there. Like it's not. I don't think anyone is handicapped. It's like there's so much opportunity. I think it's like such an awesome time to be building and creating a company in whatever space you're working in.
Yeah. 100%.
Especially parking.
I've heard there's some pretty cool parking companies like on the rise right now.
Yeah, no, I'm a big fan of Levy.
Last question. If you're in a creative rut, what do you do? Like, what do you personally do?
If you're in a creative rut, this happens to me all the time. I still struggle with that a lot. Like, I think sometimes I just like try to look for inspiration and just see what other people are doing. For me, Twitter is a lot of that. Sometimes it's just taking a break. Gotten a little burnt out from social media recently, so I'm slowing down a bit, and maybe I'll get the energy back to go again soon. Yeah, it's hard though. I feel that a lot.
Yeah. Where can people follow you or get in touch with you or sign up to your newsletter?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter, so just search my name, Ben Lang, or LinkedIn also, and then you can. if you're exploring what you want to do next, you can join NextPlay. You can just go to nextplay.so. You can get in touch with me through my website, which is benlang.me, and appreciate you having me on.
Of course, thank you. It's been awesome, and I hope that like any aspiring entrepreneurs or current founders or anyone in the tech world can gain some sort of value from our
just don't listen to my advice. Just make things.
Just do it. Just build.
Just do things.
Yeah, awesome. Okay. Thank you so much, Ben.